Hello, Dan Alasso here, making history, and I'm making history today from my father's study in California, where I am visiting. And today I want to read to you another primary source. And this one actually is a pair of sources about the voyages of John Cabot. Giovanni Caboto, who lived from between about 1450 and about 1500, the dates are uncertain, was a Venetian navigator and explorer. He was commissioned by King Henry VII to sail on England's behalf, partly in hopes of finding an alternate route to Asia, similar to Columbus. In 1497, John Cabot, as he was known to the English, sailed across the Atlantic to Newfoundland. The letters patent his charter had actually ordered him to go and seek Newfoundland. His son, Sebastian Cabot, sailed south along the Atlantic coast about as far as the Chesapeake region, and then also sailed north into Hudson's Bay, also seeking a northwest passage to the Pacific Ocean. Although every explorer sort of hoped to find cities of gold, some of the more practical commodities that the English hoped to access were a red dyewood that was believed to come from the mythical land of High Brazil, and also cod, which had very likely been fished by the Vikings as far back as the 11th century, but much more recently was known to have been fished in the 15th century by the Basques and the Portuguese on the Grand Banks, which are adjacent to Newfoundland. These fisheries, in fact, are so valuable that access to them was typically mentioned and discussed in treaties between nations, including the Treaty of Paris that will conclude the American Revolution. Cabot recorded that when he reached the Grand Banks, he discovered that there were over 1,000 fishing boats from Iberia. So the first source here is a very short source, a letter about John Cabot and his first voyage from another Venetian, Lorenzo Pasqualigo, to his brothers Alvise and Francesco. And it's dated from London, the 23rd of August, 1497. Our Venetian, who went with a small ship from Bristol to find new islands, has come back and says he has discovered 700 leagues off the mainland of a country of the Graucam, Tartary, that is China, and that he coasted along it for 300 leagues and landed, but did not see any person. But he has brought here to the king certain snares spread to take game and a needle for making nets, and he found some notched trees, from which he judged that there were inhabitants. Being in doubt, he came back to the ship. He has been away 3 months on the voyage, which is certain, and in returning he saw 2 islands to the right, but he did not wish to land lest he should lose time, for he was in want of provisions. This king has been very much pleased. He says that the tides are slack and do not make currents as they do here. The king has promised for another time 10 armed ships, as he desires, and has given him all the prisoners, except such as are confined for high treason, to go with him, as he has requested, and has granted him money to amuse himself till then. Meanwhile, he is with his Venetian wife and sons at Bristol. His name is Joam Talbot, and he is called the Great Admiral, great honor being paid to him, and he goes dressed in silk. The English are ready to go with him, and so are many of our rascals. The discoverer of these things has planted a large cross in the ground with a banner of England, and one of St. Mark, as he is a Venetian, so that our flag has been hoisted very far away. And this second one is a more detailed dispatch from Raimondo di Soncino to the Duke of Milan, dated 18th December, 1497. My most illustrious and most excellent lord, perhaps amidst so many occupations of your excellency, it will not be unwelcome to learn His Majesty has acquired a part of Asia without drawing his sword. In this kingdom there is a Venetian named Giovanni Caboto, of gentle disposition, very expert in navigation, who Seeing that the most serene kings of Portugal and Spain had occupied unknown islands, meditated the achievement of a similar acquisition for the said majesty. Having obtained royal privileges, securing to himself the use of the dominions he might discover, the sovereignty being reserved to the crown, he entrusted his fortune to a small vessel and a crew of 18 persons, and set out from Bristol, a port in the western part of this kingdom. Having passed Hibernia, which is still further to the west, and then shaped a northerly course, he began to navigate to the eastern part, leaving during several days the North Star on the right hand. And having wandered thus far a long time, at length he hit upon land, where he hoisted the royal standard and took possession for his highness. And having obtained various proofs of his discovery, he returned. The said Messer Juan, being a foreigner and poor, would not have been believed if the crew, who are nearly all English and belonging to Bristol, had not testified that what he said was the truth. This Master Juan has the description of the world on a chart, and also on a solid sphere which he has constructed, and on which he shows where he has been. And proceeding towards the east, he has passed as far as the country of the Tanai. And they say that there the land is excellent and temperate, suggesting that Brazil, dyewood, and silk grow there. They affirm that the sea is full of fish, which are not only taken with a net, but also with a basket, a stone being fastened to it, in order to keep it in the water. And this I have heard stated by the said Master Juan. The said Englishmen, his companions, say that they took so many fish that this kingdom will no longer have need of Iceland, from which country there is an immense trade in the fish they call stockfish, cod. But Messer Juan has set his mind on higher things, for he thinks that when that place has been occupied, he will keep on still further to the east, where he will be opposite to an island called Chipango, Japan, situated in the equinoctial region, where he believes that all the spices in the world, as well as the jewels, are found. He further says that he was once at Mecca, whither the spices are brought by caravans from distant countries, and having inquired from whence they were brought and where they grow, they answered that they did not know, but that such merchandise was brought from distant countries by other caravans to their home. And they further say that they are also conveyed from other remote regions. And he adduced this argument that if the eastern people tell those in the south that these things come from a far distance from them, presupposing the rotundity of the earth, it must be that the last turn would be by the north towards the west. And it is said that in this way, the route would not cost more than it costs now. And I also believe that. And what is more, this majesty, who is wise and not prodigal, reposes such trust in him because of what he has already achieved. And he gives him a good maintenance, as Master Juan has himself told me. And it is said that before long his majesty will arm some ships for him, and will give him all the malefactors to go to that country and form a colony, so that they hope to establish a greater depot of spices in London than there is in Alexandria. The principal people in the enterprise belong to Bristol. They are great seamen, and now they know where to go. They say that the voyage thither will not occupy more than 15 days after leaving Hibernia. Hibernia is Ireland. I have also spoken with a Burgundian who was a companion of Master Juan, who affirms all this, and who wishes to return because the admiral, for so Master Juan is entitled, has given him an island, and has given another to his barber upon Castione, who is a Genoese, and both look upon themselves as counts, nor do they look upon my Lord Admiral as less than a prince. I also believe that some poor Italian friars are going on this voyage, who have all had bishoprics promised to them. And if I had made friends with the admiral when he was about to sail, I should have got an archbishopric at least. But I have thought that the benefits reserved for me by your excellency will be more secure. I would venture to pray that in the event of a vacancy taking place in my absence, I may be put in possession, and that I may not be superseded by those who, being present, can be more diligent than I, who am reduced in this country to eating at each meal 10 or 12 kinds of victuals, and being 3 hours at table every day. 2, for love of your excellency, to whom I humbly recommend myself. London, 18 December 1497, Your Excellency's most humble servant. So it's kind of interesting, the things that stand out in these accounts of early travels. The cod that they found, as I said, will be huge in international negotiations. Cabot is also quoted as saying that the cod are so thick in the Grand Banks that you can almost walk across the surface of the water on their backs. So we'll have more to say about people's early impressions of the Americas going forward. But in the meantime, I hope you found that a little bit interesting. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.